The day my boss told me I was too old to matter started like every other Monday. I arrived at the office 20 minutes early, carrying my old brown leather briefcase in one hand and a cup of black coffee in the other. The building was already waking up. The security guard smiled as I walked through the front doors. "Morning, Mr. Carter." "Morning, Ben." I smiled back. Small moments like that always reminded me that respect wasn't something you demanded. It was something you earned over time. My name is Graham Dalton. I'm 58 years old, and for almost 35 years, I built businesses from the ground up. Some succeeded. Some failed. Every mistake taught me something valuable. But no one in this office knew that. To them, I was just another senior employee in the operations department. That was exactly how I wanted it. People often asked why someone with my experience would accept such an ordinary position. The answer was simple. I wanted to see how one of my newest companies really worked when nobody knew who I was. Reports and meetings could hide problems. Real life couldn't. 3 months earlier, I had quietly joined the company under a different name. Only 3 people knew the truth. The chairman. Welcome to a new video. I hope you'll enjoy the story. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks. Now let's get back to the story. Our legal advisor. And my personal assistant, Maya Brooks. Everyone else believed I was simply Graham, a quiet older man hired to help improve office procedures. I liked listening more than talking. When people believed you had no power, they showed you exactly who they were. That morning, I noticed something different the moment I stepped onto the 4th floor. People looked nervous. Computers clicked faster. Conversations stopped whenever someone walked by. The reason arrived a few seconds later. The elevator doors opened, and out stepped the new regional manager. Trevor Nash. He was probably 34 years old, dressed in a sharp navy suit that looked like it had just come from an expensive store. His shoes shined so brightly that I could almost see my reflection. He walked through the office without saying good morning. Instead, he clapped his hands once. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced loudly, "conference room. 5 minutes. Don't make me wait." People hurried to obey. I quietly picked up my notebook and followed everyone inside. Trevor stood at the front of the room with his arms crossed. "I've reviewed everyone's performance," he began. "This office has become comfortable." Nobody spoke. "I don't like comfortable." He clicked a remote, and everyone's names appeared on a large screen. Mine was near the bottom. Trevor glanced toward me. "Graham." "Yes?" "How long have you been working?" I answered honestly. "Almost 35 years." He laughed. Not a friendly laugh. The kind that makes a room feel colder. 35 years, he repeated. "Then maybe it's time to enjoy retirement." A few people looked down at the table. Others stared at me, waiting to see what I would do. Trevor kept going. "This company needs speed." He pointed directly at me. "We don't need someone your age here." The room became completely silent. I could hear the air conditioner humming above us. I took a slow sip of coffee before answering. "I believe experience can still be useful." Trevor smiled, but there wasn't any kindness in it. "Experience," he said. "Technology changes every year. You're living in the past." Several younger employees shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. No one laughed. No one agreed with him either. He didn't seem to notice. "I'll be reviewing every employee this month," Trevor continued. "Anyone who can't keep up will be replaced." His eyes settled on me again. Especially those who should have retired years ago. The meeting ended. People quietly left the room. As I gathered my notebook, Maya walked beside me. She carried her tablet against her chest and spoke softly. "Are you all right?" I smiled. "I've heard worse." She looked toward Trevor's office. He crossed a line. Maybe. She lowered her voice even more. Do you want me to tell him now? I knew exactly what she meant. One sentence would change everything. One sentence would end Trevor's career before lunchtime. But I slowly shook my head. Not yet. She studied my face for a moment. Then she smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who already knew how this story would end. As you wish, she said. Across the office, Trevor stepped out of his office and called loudly enough for everyone to hear. Graham! I turned around. He tossed a thick stack of printed reports onto my desk. If you're staying here, he said with a smirk, prove you're still useful. Several papers slid onto the floor. Nobody moved. I bent down and calmly picked them up one by one. Trevor chuckled, clearly pleased with himself, before walking away. The office stayed silent. Then Maya quietly picked up the very last page and handed it to me. She glanced toward Trevor's office before whispering words only I could hear. You know, she said with a calm smile, he really should check who signs his paycheck. I simply smiled back. Because Trevor Nash had no idea that the quiet old man he had just humiliated wasn't working for him. He was working for me. The rest of the office pretended to work, but everyone had seen what happened. People kept looking toward my desk and then quickly looking away whenever I noticed them. They wanted to ask if I was all right, but they were afraid Trevor would see them talking to me. I understood. Fear can make good people stay quiet. I placed the reports neatly on my desk and began reading them one page at a time. Trevor probably thought he had given me busy work, but I quickly realized something interesting. The numbers didn't match. Sales were growing. Customer complaints were falling. Yet the spending had almost doubled in just 4 months. That didn't make sense. I reached for a pencil and circled several numbers. Maya quietly walked over with another cup of coffee. I thought you might need this. Thank you. She glanced at the papers. You noticed it already. I smiled. It wasn't very hard. She nodded without saying anything else. That was one thing I admired about Maya. She never talked more than necessary. She noticed details that other people missed. Before joining this company, she had worked for me for nearly 8 years. She knew exactly why I had taken this secret job. We weren't here to catch mistakes. We were here to discover the truth. A loud voice interrupted my thoughts. Graham! Trevor stood outside his office. My office. Now. Several employees froze. Nobody wanted to miss what happened next, but everyone pretended to stare at their computer screens instead. I calmly walked inside. Trevor didn't invite me to sit down. Instead, he leaned back in his expensive chair and folded his arms. You know what your problem is? I answered honestly. No. You think experience makes you important. I stayed quiet. He continued. I've managed teams twice this size. That's impressive. I don't need advice from someone who's closer to retirement than promotion. He expected me to argue. Instead, I simply nodded. If that's how you feel. That answer seemed to annoy him even more. I've decided to move you. Move me? Storage. I blinked once. The storage office downstairs needs someone to organize old files. He smiled proudly. You'll start this afternoon. I looked around his office. Large windows. New furniture. Awards hanging on the wall. Everything looked impressive. But one thing caught my attention. A framed certificate listed his achievements. Almost every award had been earned at another company. Very few came from this one. Interesting. I'll move after lunch, I said calmly. Trevor looked disappointed. He had hoped I would argue. Instead, I thanked him for letting me know. As I walked back outside, the office became silent again. A young employee named Liam Foster hurried over. He couldn't have been older than 23. I'm sorry, he whispered. For what? You don't deserve this. I smiled. Do your work well, Liam. He looked confused. That's all? That's enough. He slowly nodded before returning to his desk. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness meant the most. By lunchtime, nearly everyone knew I had been transferred to storage. Some looked sad. Some looked angry. Others simply looked scared. Only Trevor looked happy. Downstairs, the storage office was small, dusty, and quiet. Old filing cabinets lined every wall. Boxes were stacked almost to the ceiling. Most people would have seen punishment. I saw an opportunity. Nobody paid attention to storage. That meant nobody expected anyone to ask questions there. Within 20 minutes, I discovered several unopened boxes marked financial records. I carefully opened one. Inside were expense reports, vendor contracts, and payment approvals. Many had never been entered into the company's digital system. That was unusual. Very unusual. As I flipped through the files, one invoice caught my eye. The company had paid nearly $80,000 for office furniture. I looked around. None of the furniture upstairs was new enough to cost that much. Where had the money gone? I placed the invoice aside. Then I found another. And another. Each payment had been approved within the last 6 months. Each one carried the same signature. Trevor Nash. Just then, Maya quietly appeared in the doorway. I thought I'd find you here. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. What have you found? I handed her the invoices. She read them carefully. Her calm face became serious. I checked these suppliers this morning. And 2 of them don't exist. I looked back at the papers. So the money disappeared. She nodded. It looks that way. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Outside, someone pushed a cart down the hallway. The sound slowly faded away. Finally, Maya smiled. I think Trevor made a mistake. Only one? She laughed softly. No. She placed the invoices back on the table. I think he forgot one very important rule. Which one? She looked directly at me. When people believe someone is weak. She paused. They stop hiding what they're doing. I slowly closed the folder. Trevor believed he had buried me in the basement. He had no idea he had actually placed me in the one room where every hidden secret eventually arrived. And something told me the biggest secret in the entire company was waiting inside one of those dusty boxes. The storage room became my new office. Most people would have hated working there. There were no large windows. No fancy chairs. No bright lights. Just rows of dusty shelves, old filing cabinets, and hundreds of boxes that everyone else had forgotten. But I had learned something important many years ago. People usually hide their biggest secrets in the places they believe nobody will ever look. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. Each box had a date written on the side. Some were 5 years old. Others were only a few months old. I carefully sorted them into groups. Invoices. Contracts. Employee records. Shipping reports. Everything had its place. After about an hour, I noticed something strange. Several folders had small blue stickers on the corners. Not every folder. Only certain ones. I pulled them out and placed them on the desk. Every folder with a blue sticker involved large payments. Every payment had one thing in common. Trevor Nash had approved them. I frowned. That couldn't be a coincidence. Just then, someone knocked softly on the open door. It was Liam. He looked around to make sure nobody had followed him. "Mr. Graham? Come in." He stepped inside carefully. "I brought these." He handed me another stack of folders. They were supposed to be thrown away. I looked at the labels. "Who told you to throw them away?" Liam lowered his voice. "Mr. Nash." "When?" "This morning." That made me stop. "This morning?" "Yes." He looked nervous. He said they're old records nobody needs anymore. I smiled kindly. "Thank you for bringing them instead." Liam sighed with relief. I thought it felt wrong. It did. He hesitated before asking another question. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why aren't you angry?" I looked at the dusty shelves around us. When I was your age, I believed getting angry solved problems. And now? Now I know that staying calm lets you see things other people miss. Liam thought about that for a moment. "I'd like to learn that." "You will." He smiled before quietly leaving the room. As soon as the door closed, I opened the folders he had saved. Inside were payment records from several construction companies. At first they looked ordinary. Then I noticed the addresses. 3 different companies. 3 different names. Exactly the same office address. That wasn't normal. I picked up the phone on my desk. "Maya? I was hoping you'd call. I found 3 companies using the same address. I checked them an hour ago. And they're all connected. To Trevor? Not directly." She paused. "But they belong to someone with the same last name." "Nash?" "His older brother." I leaned back in my chair. Now the missing money finally started making sense. If fake companies were sending bills to our business, someone could approve those bills and quietly move money into their own family's accounts. It was clever. But not clever enough. Before I could think any further, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Trevor appeared at the doorway. His smile disappeared when he saw the folders spread across my desk. "What are you doing?" "Organizing." He looked at the papers. "You work faster than I expected." "I've had practice." His eyes narrowed. "I told you to organize boxes." "I am." He walked farther into the room. Then he noticed one of the invoices lying open. His expression changed for just a second. Most people wouldn't have noticed. I did. He quickly reached toward it. "I'll take that." I calmly placed my hand on the folder first. "I'm still reviewing it." "You don't need to. It seems important." His voice became sharper. I said, "Give it to me." For a few seconds, neither of us moved. Finally, I smiled. "Of course." I handed him the folder without arguing. He grabbed it almost too quickly. Then he forced another smile. "Don't make your job harder than it needs to be." "I won't." He turned and walked away. The moment he disappeared, Maya stepped into the room from the hallway across the corner. She had seen everything. He looked worried. He was. "You gave him the real folder?" I shook my head. "No." She smiled. "I thought so." The folder Trevor carried was only a copy. The real documents were already locked inside my briefcase. Maya laughed quietly. "He's beginning to realize you're not as harmless as he thought." "Not yet." "No?" "Right now, he's only nervous." She crossed her arms. "And when he learns the truth?" I looked toward the closed door. "He'll understand that every move he makes is helping us." Just then my phone buzzed. The caller ID showed only one word. "Chairman." I answered. "Good afternoon." His calm voice came through the speaker. "Graham, I just received another complaint about Trevor.
I imagine you will receive more. I've stayed out of this because you asked me to. Thank you. But I need to ask one question. What is it? Have you seen enough? I looked at the briefcase beside my desk.
Inside were copies of fake invoices, payment records, and contracts linking Trevor's family to thousands of dollars that had quietly disappeared. It was enough to raise questions. But not enough to finish the job.
Not yet, I answered. I need him to believe he's completely safe.
The chairman chuckled.
I've known you for 20 years. And I know that look. What look? The one that means you're about to teach someone a lesson they'll never forget.
I smiled as the call ended. Outside the storage room, Trevor walked through the office with the confidence of a man who believed he was still in control. He had no idea that every step he took was leading him closer to the truth. And very soon, he would make the biggest mistake of all. The next morning, I arrived even earlier than usual. The office was still quiet. The lights were on, but only a few employees had arrived. I liked these peaceful moments. Before the phones started ringing and meetings filled the day, I could think clearly. As I walked through the lobby, Ben, the security guard, smiled.
Good morning, Mr. Graham. Morning, Ben. He leaned a little closer.
I probably shouldn't say this, but some people were here very late last night.
Oh? He nodded. Mr. Nash and two men I didn't recognize.
They carried several boxes out through the back entrance. I thanked him and continued walking, but his words stayed in my mind.
Boxes leaving the building after everyone had gone home? That was interesting.
When I reached the storage room, I noticed something immediately.
One shelf was almost empty. Yesterday it had been full.
Now there were only a few dusty folders left behind.
I slowly looked around the room. Someone had been in here.
The cabinet door was slightly open. A chair had been moved. Even the trash can was in a different place. Most people would never notice such small changes. Years of running businesses had taught me to notice everything. A few minutes later, Maya arrived carrying her tablet. They came back, she said before I even asked.
I know.
She looked surprised.
How?
The shelves told me.
She smiled. I should have guessed. She opened her tablet.
The security cameras showed Trevor entering the storage room at 9:43 last night.
Was he alone? No.
Two men helped him.
They removed many boxes? 7. I folded my arms. Did they know about the camera? They covered one camera. And the others?
They forgot about the hallway camera.
I couldn't help smiling.
People who believed they were clever often became careless.
Maya showed me a picture from the hallway camera.
The image wasn't perfect, but it clearly showed Trevor carrying one of the missing boxes himself. He looked nervous, she said.
He should. Just then, Liam hurried into the room. He looked out of breath. I've been looking everywhere for you. What happened?
He handed me a folded piece of paper. I found this beside the office shredder.
I opened it carefully. It was only half of a document. The bottom half had already been destroyed. But the top half still showed enough to read. Payment approval.
Vendor, Northridge Office Supply.
Approved by Trevor Nash. I recognized the company name immediately.
It was one of the businesses that didn't really exist.
Someone had tried to destroy the evidence.
But they had been in such a hurry that they hadn't finished.
Where exactly did you find this? I asked.
Right beside the shredder.
Did anyone see you pick it up? Liam shook his head. I don't think so. You did the right thing.
He smiled with relief.
I just remembered what you told me. What was that? When something feels wrong, don't ignore it. I nodded proudly. That's a lesson worth remembering. After Liam left, Maya placed the torn paper beside the other invoices. The pieces are starting to fit together. They are. But we're still missing one thing. She knew exactly what I meant. Proof that Trevor knew these companies were fake. Exactly. Without that, he could always claim he had made an honest mistake. Late that afternoon, the office received an email from Trevor. Everyone was called into the conference room. The employees gathered quietly. Trevor stood at the front with a confident smile. I have exciting news, he announced. Our company will soon begin a major renovation. Several people looked surprised. We'll be buying all new furniture and equipment. I almost laughed. Another renovation. Another chance to send money to fake companies. Trevor continued talking. I'll personally approve every contract to make sure we get the best deal. I noticed Maya writing something on her tablet. She looked up for only a second. That was enough. She had noticed the same thing I had. Trevor wasn't fixing a problem. He was creating another opportunity. The meeting ended, and people slowly returned to their desks. Before I could leave, Trevor called my name. Graham. I turned. I've changed my mind. About what? You'll help organize the renovation paperwork. I looked at him calmly. I thought I belonged in storage. You do. He smiled. But you'll also sort every contract before it reaches my desk. He thought he was giving me extra work. Instead, he had just handed me a front row seat to every document he planned to sign. Thank you, I replied. His smile grew wider. I knew you'd appreciate the chance. As he walked away, Maya stepped beside me. He just invited you into the middle of his own plan. He certainly did. Do you think he suspects anything? I looked toward Trevor's office. No. Then why involve you? Because pride makes people believe they're untouchable. She nodded slowly. And proud people often make the biggest mistakes. That evening, after almost everyone had gone home, I unlocked my briefcase. Inside were copies of every suspicious invoice, every unusual contract, every payment record, and now the torn document from the shredder. I spread them across the desk. One by one, the pieces connected. The fake companies. The missing boxes. The late-night visit. The planned renovation. It was becoming a very clear picture. Just as I finished arranging the last document, my phone rang. It was the chairman again. Good evening, Graham. Good evening. I've just received tomorrow's agenda. So have I. There was a short pause. Then he said something that made me smile. Trevor has requested approval for the largest contract in company history. I looked down at the papers in front of me. If my guess was correct, that contract would finally give us everything we needed. Trevor believed tomorrow would be the biggest success of his career. He had no idea it was about to become the day everything he had built on lies would begin to fall apart. The next morning, the office felt different. No one laughed near the coffee machine. No one stopped to chat in the hallway. Word had spread that Trevor was about to announce the biggest project the company had ever taken on. Everyone knew it would be important. They just didn't know how important it was. I arrived early, carrying my usual briefcase. Inside it were copies of every document we had collected over the past few days. I wasn't planning to use them yet. Not today. Today was for watching. As I stepped into the storage room, Maya was already waiting. She placed a thick folder on the desk. It came in 20 minutes ago. The renovation contract? She nodded. I made a copy before anyone else saw it. I opened the folder. The first few pages looked normal. They described new desks, computers, chairs, and meeting rooms. Everything seemed professional. Then I reached the payment page. My eyes stopped on one name. Silver Oak Commercial Services. I smiled. There it is. Maya folded her arms. I checked before sunrise. And the company was registered only 6 weeks ago. Any employees? Officially, 1. I looked up. Let me guess. She smiled. The owner's last name is Nash. I closed the folder. Trevor hadn't even tried to hide it very well. He had simply created another company connected to his family and planned to send millions of dollars through it. The only difference this time was the amount. It was the largest payment request in the company's history. Just then, Liam hurried downstairs. You both need to see this. He handed Maya his phone. Someone had accidentally shared tomorrow's meeting schedule with the entire office. At the top was one line written in bold letters. Final contract approval, chairman attending. Liam looked confused. I thought the chairman never came here. He usually doesn't, I replied. So, why now? I smiled. Maybe he wants to see something with his own eyes. Liam nodded slowly. I hope everything goes well. It will. He returned upstairs, still wondering why I looked so calm. A few minutes later, Trevor appeared in the doorway. His smile was wider than ever. Graham. Yes? I hear you've been organizing paperwork. I have. Excellent. He placed another stack of files on my desk. I need these sorted before lunch. I glanced at the top page. More contracts. More invoices. More fake companies. He was handing me evidence without even realizing it. I'll take care of them. I knew I could count on you. As Trevor turned to leave, he stopped. Oh, one more thing. I waited. Tomorrow's meeting is very important. I understand. I expect everyone to look professional. I always do. He gave a small laugh. I suppose even storage workers can clean up once in a while. Then he walked away. The room became quiet again. Maya looked at me. He still thinks you're just an ordinary employee. That's his biggest mistake. She opened another folder. There is something else. She handed me a printed email. It had been sent late the previous night. Trevor had written it to Silver Oak Commercial Services. The message was short. Everything will be approved tomorrow. Be ready to send the first invoice immediately. There was only one problem. The email had been sent from Trevor's company account. He had forgotten that company emails were automatically backed up on secure servers. Deleting them wouldn't help. I looked at Maya. Where did you find this? The IT manager. Does he know? No. He simply thought the message looked unusual and asked if I should review it. I carefully placed the email inside my briefcase. This wasn't just suspicious anymore. This was direct proof. For the first time since I had joined the company, I believed we had enough evidence. Still, I wanted Trevor to make one final choice. People reveal who they truly are when they think victory is only one step away. That afternoon, the conference room filled with samples of new office furniture. Trevor proudly walked everyone through the display. Imagine this entire office looking brand new, he said. Employees nodded politely. Some looked excited. Others looked uncertain. Trevor noticed me standing quietly near the back. Graham! I looked up. What do you think? Everyone turned toward me. I smiled politely. The furniture looks nice. He grinned. But I always believe it's wise to check every contract carefully. Several employees exchanged nervous looks. Trevor laughed loudly. That's exactly why younger people should handle business. The room became silent. He continued. Sometimes experience just means worrying too much. Nobody answered.
Not even his closest supporters.
As the meeting ended, Maya quietly walked beside me. You gave him one last chance. I did. And? He ignored it. She nodded. Then tomorrow changes everything. I looked through the conference room window.
Trevor stood proudly at the front, shaking hands and smiling as if he had already won. He believed tomorrow's meeting would earn him praise, a bigger office, and perhaps an even higher position. Instead, tomorrow would place every decision he had made under the brightest light possible. And for the very first time, the man who had laughed and said, "We don't need someone your age here," was about to discover that the quiet older employee in the storage room had been leading the game from the very beginning. The morning of the board meeting arrived with gray clouds hanging over the city. Inside the office, everyone seemed to speak in whispers. People straightened their ties, checked their notes, and walked a little faster than usual. It felt like the whole building knew something important was about to happen, even if they didn't know exactly what. I arrived carrying the same old brown briefcase I had carried every day. Trevor noticed me almost immediately. He walked over with a confident smile. "Graham. Good morning. I hope you've finished organizing all the paperwork." "I have." "Good." He looked me up and down. "I didn't expect to see you at today's meeting. You asked everyone to attend." He laughed. "I suppose I did." He gave me a quick nod before walking away, completely certain that today belonged to him. Maya stepped beside me a few seconds later. "Everything is ready." "The chairman?" "He arrived 15 minutes ago." "And the legal advisor?" "Already in the executive conference room." I smiled. "Perfect." She handed me a small folder. The original email. Inside was the printed message Trevor had sent to Silver Oak Commercial Services. It was the final piece of the puzzle. At exactly 9 o'clock, everyone gathered in the largest conference room. Employees filled every chair. Department managers lined the walls. Near the front sat the chairman and 2 members of the board. Trevor stood proudly beside a large screen. He looked completely relaxed. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "today marks a new chapter for our company." The screen lit up with colorful pictures of modern offices. "Our renovation project will improve every department." People nodded politely. Trevor clicked to the next slide. "We have found the perfect contractor." The company logo appeared. Silver Oak Commercial Services. I quietly watched the faces around the room. Nobody recognized the name. Trevor continued speaking. "They offered the best value and the fastest delivery." He sounded confident. Almost excited. When he finished his presentation, he looked toward the chairman. "All that's left is your approval." The chairman smiled politely. "Before I sign anything, I'd like to ask a few questions." Trevor nodded. "Of course. Who selected this company?" "I did." "Did anyone else review the contract?" "I handled it personally." The chairman folded his hands. "I see." The room became very quiet. Then the chairman looked across the table. "Graham." Every head turned toward me. Trevor frowned. He looked confused. "Would you join us, please?" I stood up slowly and walked to the front of the room. Trevor looked annoyed. "I'm sorry," he said, "but this discussion is for senior leadership." The chairman smiled. "Exactly." Trevor blinked. "I don't understand." "You will." The chairman stood. "I believe everyone here deserves to know something." He looked toward the employees. 3 months ago, this company began an independent internal review. Whispers spread across the room. "The person leading that review has been working with you every single day." Trevor slowly looked at me. Then back at the chairman. Then at me again. The chairman continued.
Everyone, I'd like to introduce the founder and majority owner of this company. He smiled warmly. Mr. Graham Dalton.
The room fell completely silent.
Several employees gasped.
Liam's eyes grew so wide that he almost dropped his notebook.
Trevor simply stared at me. His face lost all its color. He tried to speak. But, he's
an ordinary employee, the chairman finished.
Yes. No.
The chairman shook his head. He owns 62% of this company. Trevor took one slow step backward.
That's impossible.
I looked at him calmly.
No, Trevor. It isn't.
His confident smile disappeared completely.
You signed my employment contract?
I did.
You approved my salary?
Yes. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Around the room, employees looked from him to me and back again.
Everything suddenly made sense to them.
Why I had stayed calm. Why Maya had always trusted me.
Why I never argued.
Trevor finally found his voice.
If that's true. It is. He forced a nervous laugh.
Then this has all been one big misunderstanding.
I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I placed my old briefcase on the conference table. Slowly, I opened it. Inside were neatly organized folders. Copies of invoices. Contracts. Payment records. Emails. Every piece of evidence we had collected.
The chairman looked at me.
Would you like to explain?
I would. I picked up the first folder.
This is the contract for Silver Oak Commercial Services. Then I held up another.
This shows the company was created only 6 weeks ago.
Another folder.
This one proves the owner is a member of Mr. Nash's family.
Trevor's hands began to shake.
Several people in the room stared at him in disbelief.
I wasn't finished. I reached for one final document. The email.
The one Trevor believed no one would ever see. I placed it gently on the table in front of him.
He looked down at it.
Then his eyes became filled with fear.
Because he recognized it immediately. And so did everyone else in the room. The silence that followed was heavier than any words. Trevor finally understood that this meeting was never about approving his biggest project. It was about revealing his biggest lie.
And the hardest questions were still waiting to be asked. The conference room stayed completely silent.
No one moved. No one whispered.
The only sound was the quiet hum of the air conditioner.
Trevor stared at the email lying on the table.
His hands trembled. For the first time since I had met him, he had nothing to say. The chairman looked at him calmly.
Mr. Nash, he said, is this your email? Trevor swallowed. It looks like mine. Looks like yours? I don't remember sending it.
I gently slid another folder across the table.
You don't have to remember.
He looked at it without touching it.
The company's IT department keeps secure copies of every email. Even if someone deletes one, the original remains on the server.
Several managers exchanged surprised looks. Trevor's shoulders slowly dropped. The chairman opened the folder. Inside were printed records showing exactly when the email had been sent, which computer had been used, and which company had received it.
Every detail matched.
There was no mistake. The chairman looked up.
Would you like to explain why you told a company owned by your own family to prepare for payment before this board approved the contract? Trevor took a deep breath. I can explain. We're listening. He looked around the room. I wasn't trying to steal anything. Nobody answered.
I was only trying to help my brother's business. His words filled the room.
Several employees looked at each other in disbelief.
He had finally admitted the company belonged to his family.
I thought.
Trevor continued quietly, if his company got the contract, everyone would still receive good furniture.
I spoke calmly.
The furniture wasn't the real problem.
He looked at me.
The problem was that your company charged almost 3 times the normal price.
I opened another folder.
Inside were 3 price comparisons from honest suppliers.
Each one offered nearly the same furniture for much less money.
The board members carefully studied the papers.
One of them shook his head. This difference is enormous. Trevor's face turned pale. He tried again. I was going to lower the price later.
The chairman asked softly.
After the money had already been approved? Trevor couldn't answer. The room became quiet once more. Then Maya stood up. She placed another small folder on the table.
I believe this also belongs in today's meeting.
Trevor looked frightened. What is that? She opened it.
Inside were security camera pictures from the hallway outside the storage room.
Each photo showed the date and time.
There was Trevor.
There were the 2 men.
And there were the missing boxes being carried out of the building. The chairman frowned.
Why were company records removed after business hours?
Trevor closed his eyes.
I was cleaning. Cleaning?
Old files. I quietly reached into my briefcase one last time. Then I placed the original invoices on the table.
The files you removed were copies. I smiled kindly.
The originals never left my briefcase. Several people let out small gasps. Trevor slowly lowered his head.
He finally understood.
Every move he had made had only uncovered more evidence against himself.
Liam sat near the back of the room, watching everything with wide eyes. He had never seen anything like this before.
The chairman folded his hands.
Mr. Dalton. Yes? You asked us to let this investigation continue quietly. I did. Are you satisfied that we now understand the truth? I looked around the room. I saw frightened employees.
Honest workers who had simply wanted to do good jobs. I saw Maya, calm as always. I saw Liam, who had chosen honesty instead of fear.
Finally, I looked at Trevor. He no longer appeared proud. He no longer smiled. He simply looked tired. Yes, I answered. I believe we know enough.
The chairman nodded.
He stood and addressed everyone in the room.
Effective immediately, Trevor Nash is removed from all management duties while the board completes its legal review. Security officers quietly entered the conference room. They were respectful. There was no shouting. No rough treatment. One officer stepped beside Trevor. Sir, we'll escort you to collect your personal belongings.
Trevor didn't argue.
As he stood, he looked at me.
I judged you because of your age. I nodded. You did. I thought experience didn't matter.
It always matters, I replied gently.
Not because older people know everything, but because every honest mistake can teach a lesson.
He lowered his eyes.
I'm sorry.
The room stayed silent.
After a long moment, I answered. I accept your apology.
His eyes lifted slightly. But accepting an apology doesn't erase the choices we make.
He slowly nodded. I understand.
As the security officers escorted him from the room, no one cheered.
No one clapped. Watching someone lose everything was not a reason to celebrate.
When the doors closed behind him, the chairman smiled at the employees.
Today wasn't about catching one person. He looked around the room. It was about protecting every honest person who works here. Many employees smiled with relief.
Some even wiped tears from their eyes. Then the chairman turned to me.
Graham. Yes?
I believe everyone here would like to know why you chose to work beside them instead of simply giving orders from the executive office.
I smiled.
That's a story worth telling. And for the first time since this journey had begun, everyone in the room leaned forward, ready to listen. The room stayed quiet as everyone looked at me. Some employees had worked beside me for 3 months. Some had eaten lunch with me. Some had even helped me carry heavy boxes into the storage room. Now they had learned that I wasn't just another employee. I was the founder of the company. The chairman smiled. "Graham, I think everyone deserves to hear the truth." I nodded. "They do." I stood and looked around the room. When I started this company 35 years ago, I had one desk, one old computer, and a dream. Several employees listened carefully. I wasn't rich. I wasn't famous. I simply wanted to build a place where people could do honest work and be treated with respect. I paused for a moment. As the company grew, something began to worry me. The room remained silent. I received reports showing strong profits. Managers kept telling me everything was wonderful. I smiled softly. But numbers don't always tell the whole story. I looked toward Liam. I wanted to know how people treated each other when they thought no one important was watching. Many employees slowly nodded. "So I came here." Someone near the back asked quietly. "As a regular employee?" "Yes." I wanted to see the real company. I looked around the room again. And I found something very special. Several people looked surprised. I found honest employees. I pointed toward Liam. A young man who chose honesty instead of fear. Liam's face turned bright red. He looked embarrassed, but he couldn't stop smiling. Then I looked at Maya. I found someone who stayed calm, protected the truth, and never looked for praise. Maya simply smiled. She never enjoyed being the center of attention. Finally, I looked at everyone else. And I found many good people who worked hard every single day. I took a slow breath. But I also found one manager who believed a person's value depended on age. No one argued. Everyone had seen it happen. The chairman stood beside me. "I have one more announcement." The employees turned toward him. "First, every contract connected to fake companies has been cancelled." Quiet smiles appeared around the room. "Second, every missing dollar will be recovered through the proper legal process." Several people nodded with relief. "And third," he smiled, "every employee who reported concerns honestly will be protected." Liam looked like he had just heard the best news of his life. The chairman continued. "Honesty should never cost someone their job." The room filled with gentle applause. Not loud cheering. Just honest appreciation. After the meeting ended, employees slowly returned to their desks. This time, the office felt completely different. People smiled at one another. Conversations returned. The heavy feeling that had filled the building all week was finally gone. Later that afternoon, I walked back into the storage room one last time. The shelves were still dusty. The old filing cabinets still squeaked when they opened. I smiled. This little room had helped uncover the truth. A knock came at the door. It was Liam. He looked nervous. "Mr. Dalton? Come in." He stepped inside. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For believing someone like me could make a difference." I smiled warmly. "Liam, can I tell you a secret?" He nodded. "When I started this company, I was younger than you are now." His eyes grew wide. "Really?" "Really. I made mistakes almost every day." "So? How did you become successful?" I pointed to one of the old boxes. "Every mistake is like one of those files." He looked confused. "If you hide it, it becomes heavier. If you open it, learn from it, and put it in the right place." I smiled. "It becomes experience." Liam thought about that for a long moment. "I'll remember." "I hope you do."
Just then, Maya entered the room carrying a small envelope. "It's finished." She handed it to me. Inside was Trevor's signed resignation letter. I quietly folded it and placed it inside the cabinet. Not because I wanted to remember Trevor's failure, but because I wanted to remember the lesson. Respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned. Before leaving the office, I gathered everyone together one last time. "I have one final announcement. Everyone stopped working. I won't be returning as your CEO." The room became very quiet. Several people looked shocked. One manager raised his hand. "Then who's going to lead the company?" I smiled. "The board will choose the best person." Someone asked, "What will you do?" I looked around the office that I had built many years before. "I'll do what I came here to do." "And what's that?" "I'll visit our other offices." A few people laughed. "As another regular employee?" I grinned. "Maybe." The whole office laughed together. As I walked toward the elevator, Ben, the security guard, held the door open. "See you again, Mr. Graham?" I smiled. "You probably will." The elevator doors slowly closed. I looked back one last time. The office wasn't perfect. No company ever is. But now it was honest again. And I knew something that Trevor had learned too late. Gray hair does not make someone weak. Real strength comes from kindness, honesty, and the courage to do the right thing. Even when no one knows who you really are. Before you go, I want to ask you something. If you were in Graham's place, after being judged and humiliated because of your age, would you have revealed the truth right away, or would you have stayed patient until the right moment? And if you were Trevor, at what point should he have admitted his mistakes, when he was first warned, when the evidence began to appear, or before his pride cost him everything? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you would do. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more powerful family and workplace stories about respect, honesty, second chances, and the life lessons that remind us true character is never measured by age. The end.